I've written some articles on faithroot.com about facing depression, coping with anxiety and depression, written for people generally struggling with depression and for those wanting to help people, but also writing as a pastor who has faced depression myself. But I recognize that a lot of people who get hit by depression, and a lot of people that want to help those that are hit by depression, may not want to sit and read articles, may not want to sit and read long books, may not want to engage with something that may even feel academic. And so I thought I would share a couple of videos with you just to talk a little bit about my experience and my thoughts. And so here goes with the first one. And the first thing I want to say is that if you are struggling with anxiety and depression, I want to encourage you that you are not suffering on your own. You are not alone. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own story first of all. And I want to take you a long way back because I was hit with an illness back last year that knocked me for six. But I don't think that was my first brush with depression. When I was at university, I battled with what I just thought of as homesickness. I went to university and I really struggled, particularly through the second term. I got through the first term okay, but the second term was like a living hell. I felt so lonely. It wasn't that I lacked friends, but I just felt completely on my own and isolated. I was used to being at home in the company of others where there was constantly things happening. And unless you joined with the gangs that went out and got drunk every night, if you were actually there trying to study, then you could end up just being on your own in your room. We didn't have all of the internet stuff then. I couldn't just Skype in with my parents. I could go to a TV room and hopefully, and I think there was a room for watching the BBC and a room for watching the ITV. And if you went in, hopefully people were watching the channel that you wanted to do. If you tried to get a TV in your room and got the license for it, then you just got hit with a snowy screen because the signal was terrible. And you were there with your portable aerial, remember those? And I felt incredibly lonely, incredibly low, incredibly sad and anxious. But I persevered through. I had a similar experience when I first moved to Kent, of that isolation, that overwhelming loneliness and that sense of bleak despair. And I would have never thought at the time to go to the doctor. I'd have never thought to have taken tablets or anything like that. And I think not least because there was still a level of stigma around those things. Christians did not get sad. Christians did not get depressed. If you were depressed, it was probably caused by sin. Medication wasn't going to help. So I battled through. Fast forward, I'm working as a pastor in a local church. A lot of that stuff is behind me. But just through the hecticness of life, the church is becoming busier and busier. Things are becoming more complicated. Relationships are complex within the church. There's a lot of suffering. We are not in some place where that is nicely hidden away. But day by day, I am walking with people who are suffering, people that are suffering bereavement, people that are suffering their own emotional health issues, people that are struggling with employment issues, with alcohol and drugs. They're all around, the homeless guys that turn up, people that have faced horrific stories, events in their lives, from persecution and suffering and abuse and manipulation that has forced them to flee within the country and often here as asylum seekers. And all of that is going on. And all of the challenges of just trying to look after people. And I have talked before about the temptation to try and at times to be the peacekeeper, the mediator, to handle everything and to become the focal point for everything. And sometimes because, not because our church is unusual, but because this is life and churches are messy, to get hit with things when people are unhappy and hurting themselves. And one of the things that I've seen is when you hurt, when you have physical pain, often you don't know exactly what the cause, what the source of that pain is. It just seems to hurt you all over. And the temptation is to just to lash out and to push away, because even people coming to help someone that is suffering from chronic pain feels hurtful. That happens spiritually and emotionally as well. And I had points when I hit lows, points when I cried, points when I felt incredibly anxious and a complete loss of energy, but they didn't really seem to last long, and I was able to bounce back and get back on my feet and get going again. And then in November, I was at church one Sunday. It had been a busy Sunday morning. I had been there from early on and caught up in a lot of the hard work of getting the place set up, getting the technology going. The technology was being stubborn. It had been a busy weekend. Saturday is meant to be my day off, but there'd been elders meetings, there'd been a special meeting, everything had been crammed in. I was not just physically, I was emotionally exhausted. And there were some challenges to face, some pastoral issues. And then at some point in that morning, I remember just finding myself weeping, just thinking, I cannot go on. This is too much. Feeling in many respects like a fraud, that I had been this person keeping it together. I'm feeling very much like a failure, that I had failed in so many ways, and having that sense of trying to protect people from all sorts of areas of being hurt, trying to be the mediator when people fell out, and it just was not something I could do. With the encouragement of an elder who is a doctor, I benched myself. I said, I can't go on. I had to miss a baptism service. That was hard. And then the next day I was at the doctor's, and I walked into the doctor's surgery because I'm an asthmatic. I have been to see this doctor over the years with the occasional chest infection or update on asthma and things like that. And there I was seeing a doctor I knew, and she said, what's the problem? How can I help you today? And again, I just burst into tears, and eventually just got out the words, this is it. And so she got me prescribed on some sertraline. She booked further appointments for me, and she signed me off sick. I tried to negotiate, and not that enthusiastic, if I'm honest, to say, look, there's things to do. I have a funeral to do. It's the stuff I can do. And she said, no, you are not well. I know you. I know what you are normally like. This is not you. You are at the stage where you need help as well. You want to help people, but you can't do that without first getting some help yourself. And so there I was at home. And that's where I was for 3 weeks, pretty much sat on the sofa under a blanket, occasionally just being overwhelmed with emotion, but something also seemed to click in or switch off in my brain, and my brain stopped working. And that was probably a good thing, although a little bit frightening at the time. And all I could do was read a psalm each day. I found those psalms so helpful and comforting. Just talk to God, not in any deep theological grand prayers, but just to chat away to him, just to say, I'm struggling, I'm hurting, help me. And alongside that, some very silly TV as well. And wondering whether I was ever going to get off of that sofa again. I slept a lot. I had some visitors who came to encourage me. And I got through it. But it was tough. I'm going to talk a bit more about the help I got in future videos. For me, a key thing, and everyone is different, the key thing for me was being able to find that spiritual comfort and closeness to God. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that for people. Everybody's experience is different, and there will be sometimes just a real overwhelming sense of darkness. God bless me, God looked after me in a particular way because of what I needed at that time. So that's a bit of my story. I hope you find that helpful. If you haven't suffered with depression, just starting to hear some stories might help you as you want to pray for and look after others. If you've been through something yourself, to understand there are others with stories out there might just help a little bit. Thank you.